Bender.
And I'm here with Sydney, and this is BS Astrology coming at you, still in the midst of eclipse season.
What's up, y'all? This is episode 13. We are talking about March 31st to April 6th. We're in the thick of it. Into the thick of it. We're 2 days, just 2 days post the eclipse uh, in general. We are recording this, however, on March 24th during the Mercury Cazimi. We're just trying to catch that at least.
Yep.
So we don't actually know how the eclipse all shook out, but because we have already talked about the eclipse, we do know that it's probably going to be some major stuff. So I'm hoping that everybody's feeling okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Hope you are coping, if nothing else.
And the things that we weren't able to get to in the previous episode because we had a time constraint was that Neptune had just gone into Aries on Sunday. So, yesterday, from the day that this starts, Neptune entered Aries, saying goodbye to its previous cycle and starting this new 164-year cycle. And about 14 years in the sign, I believe it is.
Yep.
And yeah, so this is
And it's the first sign on the wheel. So it's particularly interesting that it's not just like a beginning, it's like the beginning for
it's the
Neptune.
beginning. Yeah, this is a new frontier in terms of all of the, I think like there's stuff here about the glamour of Aries things that we're going
Hmm.
to grappling with for the next 14 years. So war, identity, warrior spirit, pioneering.
Yeah, I was gonna say like warriors. I think warriors and war heroes are going to be a big
Yeah.
uh, part of this cycle. Maybe
Fight.
even like false starts
Yeah.
or just like
Fight.
lack of clarity on where to start or where the beginning is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we just consider too that like Neptune in Pisces was really like the rise of social media. And I've seen some other astrologers talking about it, and I've just been like gnawing on it. I'm like, yeah, like all of that like artifice, right? That Pisces can do of like setting the perfect scene with your perfect children and like putting on this perfect skit in order to have like followers and all of this stuff, right? Like it's really like it's the full glamour, the full illusion of everything. And now we are like stripped bare
Yep.
into the Aries way. And so I wonder if things in terms of like social media are going to get much more pared down, stripped down in like the types of media that people consume.
Yeah, you make a really good point with that, right? Because I know that one of the more common criticisms of social media as of late has been that it is all staged, that it doesn't feel real, it doesn't feel genuine. It feels like we've created these false versions of ourselves. And one of the good qualities about Aries is that Aries is genuine, right? Like Aries is what you see is what you get
Yeah, for good or bad.
for good or bad, right? And I think that it's interesting that you're right that social media is going to be moving into that kind of space.
Mhm.
I'm very curious because I think people are kind of sick of, and this kind of applies to a lot of other things too, but people are kind of sick of the fantasy. People are sick of uh, not being clear on what's real and what's not. We're getting just a barrage of information from so many different places, and we can't make sense of what's real and what's fake. Um,
Yeah.
so I
I
think
think,
that's going to be an interesting thing to see how the social media arena evolves specifically. Yeah.
and I think if we also just consider that like Aries is about simplicity.
Hmm.
Right. Like like just pared down to one, stripped bare to just this one essence, this thing,
Hmm.
right? The idea, even the flame, the match, like taking,
Hmm.
I wonder if, I think about my phone and how many fucking apps are on my phone, right? And I think about all, in the last year, in the last couple of years, actually, we've seen more and more people talking about like leaving social media
Hmm.
or like putting down their phone for long periods of time and like literally going off on their own to go for a walk or go into the woods or, something like that. And I wonder if we get down to kind of the brass tacks of how we can be, I don't know, more purely ourselves in a
Hmm.
way and
Yeah.
and kind of holding a better dream for ourselves. Like this is the good side of it, right? Is
Yeah.
like,
But and you're right, right? And because it's like it's almost like we've lost the plot with social media a little
we
bit because
absolutely
it was
have.
supposed to be a way for us all to be more connected to each other. And I think that we're now in this stage where we feel so disconnected from each other, and it's like the only way we can see each other is through social media. And it makes me
Yeah.
feel like we have lost the plot a little bit. And yeah,
Maybe like
like
Pisces would.
yeah, and like we're talking about technology and like what you just said about there being like too many apps. I know for me that's like a daily
Yeah.
frustration in my life is that I thought technology was supposed to make things easier for us. Again, like we've lost the plot. Technology was supposed to make things easier for us, and it has made everything so exponentially complicated. Anybody who's involved in the US healthcare system can tell you what it's like to go onto a health insurance website, especially
Bro.
like a state funded health insurance website.
Bro, it is.
Bruh.
No, even making an appointment, right? Even just making
Making an
like
appointment.
I don't have I just recently got a primary care physician. And so I went to like go meet with her and she's asking all these questions and like I don't like doctors. I am supremely healthy. I have a beautiful sixth house lord, right? Like just she's so lucky. I'm so lucky. But
Hmm.
like still, we do need checkups. I'm now in my 40s. I like all of, I need to go see a gynecologist. I need to do all this stuff. But I can't do that without talking to her. And literally I was in the room. The how overblown the things that I have to do just to get a referral to a gynecologist, driving 30 minutes to go sit with this doctor who literally I talked to for 7 minutes. And then she was like, "Oh, I can't do any of this until you see these people." And I was like, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
what? This could have been an email. This could have been, we could have called on the,
Hmm. It's the same thing. Like I moved to California and I immediately started looking for jobs, and it had been years since I had to search for a
Mhm.
job. And oh my God, every single job that I applied for, you had to make an account in their portal, right? And
Yep.
do all this crap. And it turns out that they like explicitly discourage you from just walking into the establishment and asking to fill out an application. Like they don't want you to do that anymore, even though it's easier that way just to walk the fuck in and have them see your face and fill out the application and hand them the piece of paper. For some reason, we have all bought into this idea that we all need to be like, technologically like at the forefront and everything. And yeah, all this to say is, yeah, we've lost the plot with a lot of things. And I'm in Aries rising, so of course I'm like, this is stupid.
I mean, and what's so fascinating too is now that we have Neptune, you have a pretty early ascendant. So like Neptune
Mhm.
is going to be for your ascendant, which is going to be I'm so glad that like we have astrology and I get to know you because we get to have conversations. I mean, I love that I get to know you because you're my friend, right? And we get to like have these conversations and nerd out together, but like in real time, I get to talk to like a very self-aware person about what Neptune is like going over the ascendant,
Right.
especially when you have this like fiery, like spunky way of I'm just so fascinated. But
Thank
all that to say,
you.
yeah, all that to say though is like we're going to continue to talk about Neptune and Aries. I think we're gonna continue to kind of explore the different archetypes and the ways that this can come up. Um, but we should get into the rest of the things so we don't go on too long. We do have a time constraint again today.
Yeah. So the one thing I just want to say one more thing in regards to Neptune is because we've been talking about Neptune in its final degrees in Pisces, and we brought it up a few times before. So now it's just like think about it as like now we're on the other side of that threshold, right? We're
Mhm.
still in these critical degrees with Neptune, but now we are in the early degrees of Neptune and Aries. So when we've been talking about Neptune and Pisces at 29 degrees, we're talking about every aspect that it was hitting or that was hitting Neptune. We were talking about kind of closing that chapter and how every single aspect was kind of concluding whatever story had been going on for the last, however many years. Now we're talking about every single aspect. When we talk about an aspect hitting Neptune, we're going to be talking about how we are setting the stage
Yeah.
for Neptune and Aries. These are going to be really, really significant aspects to be paying attention to because they're going to kind of be foreshadowing some of the themes that we're going to be dealing with Neptune over the next 14 years.
Yeah.
So,
And Neptune isn't going to go far in the next, it's gonna go up just like I think like a degree, maybe two, and then it goes back into Pisces because it forgot something, and then it'll go forward again. Um,
yep.
so we have so many conversations about this as we go forward, and we'll probably even mention it again because we do have aspects to Neptune now that it has shifted. So the other things that we should make note of, just of kind of what's going on in this week. So 2 days post the Aries eclipse. So again, more Aries energy is happening here. New beginnings, new starts. We are in an Aries season, also important. We have Mercury and Venus have retrograded and now are back in Pisces. Also important to take note of is like they forgot some stuff back there and they're trying to go figure out what that is so they can come back and join everybody else in Aries. This is the last week of Mercury retrograde, which is great because holy Moses, already, like we're a week away from this, but like everything, my phone, like I looked at it at like 6 o'clock in the morning, woke up, look at my phone, and it's like, I'm overheating. And I was like, the fuck? And I had to put it in the fridge. Everything with Wi-Fi, like everything has just been insane.
Okay, tell me this, Sid, because you're also a very mercurial person. Does Mercury retrograde fuck with you harder than other people? Because
No.
it fucks with me so hard.
Is yours direct or is it retrograde?
Mine's direct. It's
Mine's
direct.
retrograde. I live,
Oh, so you're just like, ha ha ha, I know how this is.
yeah, I'm built like this.
I'm built like this.
I'm
Okay,
afraid-
so that might explain something because I'm very mercurial, but my Mercury is not retrograde. And I just always like we all go through it with Mercury retrograde, but it's like for me, it's like consistently car problems, consistently some piece of technology breaks. I feel like I have a reputation for like breaking technology, and it's just because every time Mercury retrograde comes around, I break something.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. I typically watch Mercury retrograde everybody else.
That
Like
must be
just
nice for you.
yeah, I mean, things do kind of go awry, but it's almost like I can see them kind of being a little like it's like I can see the wiggle happen, and I'm like, oh no, 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 we're not doing that. Like I literally looked at my phone, I was like, okay, you go in the fridge, and I went
Yeah,
and did
you
things,
go in the
you know,
fridge.
and that's very much how like this has been for me so far. So I'm just kind of like maybe it's because I'm always internally anticipating something going wrong. That I am able to. That's not a great way to be, but like that is very much a part of my personality. So
And it makes you a
uh,
great person for being in crisis. Everybody go
I
go to sit if you're in crisis.
I am an incredibly good person in crisis. I get real cool, calm and collected, and I am like all about gathering all the data and making plans. It's like not, people are like, you should be freaking out, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do that later. Like after
Yeah.
I write my,
We have
I'll
shit
have,
to do.
yeah.
Love that.
Other things about this week too, we do have Mars will perfect his trine to Saturn on Friday in the early evening. We do like that. We've had this working aspect kind of flowing in the background for a couple of weeks now because they've just been so slow. Mars is still out of bounds in Cancer. I cannot
Hate it.
wait for him to get out of Leo. I mean, out of Cancer and into Leo. And even though that's my 12th house, I
I
need
think all of us just need something different.
something different. He's got to change. He's got to change. It's too much.
Yeah. I'm
Moon.
ready for it too. I'm done. I'm done with my ruling planet being in this trash ass placement.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
So,
And I know that it's just been like messing with you
yeah.
and like really erratic, the out of bounds stuff. The moon's gonna be running like Tomb Raider through Taurus, through Leo. We got fixed to fixed moons for this week.
Dude, you are killing it with this Mercury Kazee because you're cracking me up right now.
And
Running like Tomb Raider. Sorry, go ahead.
And then forming all week, we got the retrograde Venus in Pisces conjunct Saturn. So it's within 3 degrees when we start. Our and it's right around that north node, right? But it won't perfect until the following week, but it is definitely it's very heavily running in the background. We can't forget that these things are happening. So without further ado, I think I'm going to put up all of the charts I'm going to try to do at noon Pacific Standard Time. They are in whole sign houses just for clarity because we're not reading houses because this is a forecast of daily things that are kind of affecting the general public. And we're in Oakland, so they are set for Oakland time. Let me put the chart up for a moment. You see that?
I can see it.
All right. So, as you can see, we got the moon in Taurus. Like I was saying, the Venus, Saturn, North Node, Mercury, that Pisces moment is really happening. I'm not sure if you can see my arrow, but I'll just,
I can see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it'll record. We don't know. It's
Mercury
right.
retrograde, bitches.
Yeah, we don't know. We do still have the sun in Aries with Neptune. We love it. And then here's this moon in Taurus. All right, I'm gonna stop the share and let's talk about what's going on.
We're going to start at Monday, March 31st.
Yeah.
Moon, like you just said, we are starting with the moon in Taurus. But moon is pretty quiet today. We're talking about mostly minor aspects for Monday. Right before we started recording, Sid and I kind of called this like a false start. It's like it almost doesn't count because there's just nothing going on. At 4:13 a.m., we start with our first very minor semi-square to Saturn. And then it just kind of follows that path all the way through the morning. We've got a semi-sextile to the sun at 6:30. At 7:21 we have a quintile to Mars, which is a little more pleasant.
Yeah.
um
A little bit more productive.
yeah. So again, like even just from here, it's really just like minor discomfort. You're also still going to be probably sleeping at that point or just starting your day. Might It seems like maybe just a case of the Mondays until like 7:30.
Yeah.
um, and then you get the quintile, which feels a little bit more like creative, a little bit more, especially since it's to Mars, a little bit more inclined to, you know, get your ass up and get started on something. But for the most part, it's minor.
Yeah.
9:45 a.m. semi-square to retrograde Venus in Pisces. Again, just like discomfort, case of the Mondays.
Yeah.
11:52 semi-square to retrograde Mercury in Pisces. Discomfort. And
I
that's
mean,
how the whole morning starts.
yeah, and I think the interesting thing too is like, the moon is in Taurus and these planets are in Pisces, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not quite understanding each other. They still like both of these planets are so internal. Like I think all of this is or the signs are internal signs, right? So I think that there's a sense of like introversion that we're kind of like emotionally going through this. It's not really busting out. Moon in Taurus really wants to be cozy,
Yeah.
you
And I
know?
think especially when we're talking about the point in later in the morning when we have the semi-squares to the two retrograde planets, Venus and Mercury. It's
Yeah.
like quiet rumination.
Yeah,
Just
just
like
can't quite get comfortable in what he's feeling and like what
that.
he's sensing and what he's thinking, especially because with Mercury and Pisces, we know that that's like, I think of Mercury and Pisces like Jello thoughts.
Yeah. exactly. I think we've talked about Mercury and Pisces before because the only way to communicate effectively as a Mercury and Pisces is through abstractions, which
Yeah.
is why people with Mercury and Pisces tend to be really wonderful artists,
And
um,
poet.
poets, performers, right? Because we're not trying to communicate facts. They're just really trying to communicate like the human
Vibe,
condition.
the vibe. Like,
Yeah, the vibe, the jello vibes.
yeah, you know, and like the moon in Taurus does like simplicity, right? And Pisces is not simple, it is everything. And so there is a discomfort there, you know, and yeah, I think today, Monday, feels very false startish. And then there's a little bit of a maybe at 2:30 we have that semi-sextile with Jupiter and Gemini.
Mhm.
And I think that there's almost coming to an understanding about what we're feeling or what we're thinking, but it doesn't quite it still feels like a little bit of an itch, right?
It's like it might feel like we're coming to an understanding, or maybe it's just like making peace with the fact where it's like I'm not going to make sense of anything today, and I give up. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I feel like I just feel like
Yeah. well, maybe if I,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, Monday, I think there's just going to be, yeah, like you said, I think you might be inclined to be a little more introverted on this day. Um, definitely some discomfort, some
Yeah.
rumination.
And it's, you know, we have to remember that we still, with that trine working in the background, we're still working to get things done.
Yep.
It's just maybe because we have these weird little aspects, we kind of feel like a chicken with our head cut off in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I wouldn't count on like coming to any hard, fast conclusions on Monday.
We won't feel like things have been wrapped in a bow.
No, no. This is just a day to get through.
Yeah, so good luck to you all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that's Monday. Don't worry, it gets better. So far, we're starting you off being like, well,
Well, and also, you know, it just being 2 days after the eclipse, like we're still dealing with like the aftermath. Like
yeah,
this is still, we're
we're
looking
gonna,
at
we're
the
probably gonna be feeling cooked.
yeah, we're
Um,
looking at the ground around us and we're like, oh, here's all these pieces, Jesus,
mm,
you know, and
yep.
trying to kind of figure out how we can put them back together, and it's just not quite doing it. So,
And eclipses can be very disorienting. It can definitely. At one point, when we were talking about the eclipses, Sid, you compared it to like you're walking on a path and like some mysterious force picks you up and then puts you on a different path, and all of a sudden you're just there. So if that's kind of what the eclipse did to you, I definitely think Monday is definitely a sense of just kind of like looking around and like getting your bearings and being
yeah,
like,
it's all of the planets, right?
yeah,
Moon does all these little things, these little check-ins with everything except for like Uranus, really, with all of the in what's it called? Personal planets. Wow, my brain. Personal planets, and then some of the outers, and it's just kind of like, hey, yo, like, are you good?
yeah,
Like, let's, you know, like, fuck.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, so let's move forward.
Yeah, let's
To
go to Tuesday. Tuesday's got a lot more going on.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I'll put the chart up just briefly again.
this is going to
Here
be
we
first day of April, which is fun.
April Fool's
April
Day.
Fool's Day. We love it. I
Yeah,
always uh, thought it was kind of funny how April Fool's Day is in Aries season.
well, silly clowns can be Aries. They just fire starters. I'm just gonna do what I
Yeah.
do, and like it's a prank.
Yeah.
Like, uh,
Don't take it so serious. Ha 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 ha. Ha.
yeah, yeah. So, um, kind of things of notes is we're kind of pretty much, I mean, close to mid Aries season here. And we do have the moon is going to change signs today. So that is important for us to keep in mind is that we might have a little bit of a vibe shift, right? When the moon goes from cozy, comfy, secure-minded or security-minded, survival-minded Taurus, and then it goes into Gemini where he's like, think, thinking all the way like that, you know, needing all, I know it's my moon. I know him.
Uh,
But I think this is going to feel like a more productive day, don't you think?
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
Uh, Especially because we're like we said, we're coming off of all of these. It's post eclipse season, and we're coming off of this day where, like Sid said, we're just kind of like checking in with everything. Might be actually a good time for Gemini to step in and be like, oh, let's process all this data. You
Yeah.
know? But yeah, so we're starting off middle of the night, 2:30 a.m. Moon in Taurus makes a sextile to Mars in Cancer at 23 degrees.
It's
Uh,
not the friendliest sextile you could get though, because it would
no,
be Mars receiving in his detriment, even though
exactly.
the
Yeah.
moon's receiving
And I
Mars.
think that's too bad because Taurus and Cancer usually really like each other, but it's just like not quite the right conditions for them to have the relationship they usually do. I think there would be like a desire to be cozy, but not quite getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a quiet sextile, hopefully we'll be asleep.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing is we'll be asleep. So hopefully it'll just be in your dreamscape.
But we
Uh,
got the sextile with Saturn, which I think it again, like moon in any contact with Saturn kind of brings a sense of it can be somberness, a sense of kind of solemnity, isolation, a feeling of like, oh, I need to set myself aside from other people, wanting to be a little bit more like emotionally contemplative, perhaps.
and we just the day before talked about the relationship with Taurus and
Yeah.
Pisces. Again, Pisces is complicated. Taurus doesn't love things
Oh,
being that complicated.
yeah.
Uh, so I think
Be like
Saturn might,
set
sorry,
like down, could just like kind of calm down the
yeah,
moon wants to calm down that like the ocean in a way.
yeah, yeah. And the ocean is kind of like, but there's stuff to process here.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's cool.
Again, so that's at 4 in the morning, West Coast. East Coast, you'll probably be waking up to that energy,
Yeah.
which isn't, it's not the worst, but it's not the best.
Like it's like feeling like emotionally grounded in
Yeah,
like
it's just a little more serious.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's more serious. It's like, okay, this is the reality of the situation that I see now, like picking up the pieces from yesterday and looking at them, like letting them kind of sift through my hands.
It
Uh,
could very well you just like wake up and you're like, man, yesterday was weird. Today I'm actually gonna try to get something done today.
yeah, it's a
Like
good working aspect, exactly. And
yeah.
then 4:50 a.m. we got the moon conjunct Uranus and Taurus. So this, can be a bit of a little bit of a shockaroo.
Shockaroo. Early in the, we love shockaroos at 4:50 in the morning.
Yeah, I think kind of like, it feels like bing, eyes
Yep.
open.
Yep.
Okay.
Eyes open and I'm already late.
Yeah.
Or something, right? So yeah, so
Your
that's
sense of
happening.
security is definitely disrupted.
Yeah. And it's in Taurus. So the first thing that came to mind with this is I don't know if you've ever overdrawn on your bank account, but when I've overdrawn on my bank account, I find out first thing in the morning when I get a text message alert about it. So maybe it's that. Check on your bank accounts, guys.
Yeah. Not great, right? And I think is it in Tauruses? It's in Mars is bound. No, it's in yeah, Mars is bound and Mars is decan, so it's definitely about something about our security.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sense
Definitely
of
about
security.
and it could just like from a global or more group perspective. So there's some sort of little
You know
shock.
what else? Rent is due on this day. Oh, it's
God.
the first of the month. Rent's gonna be due. It's just gonna feel you might feel like your purse strings. You gotta pull those a little tighter,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Uh, and so yeah, so that's still first thing in the morning. We may not even be awake yet for West Coast, East Coast. You'll be starting your day, and
Yeah.
then we're moving into 6:36 a.m. We have a smaller aspect. It's Moon semi square to Sun in
And that's
Aries.
just like just a little bit out of it, right? Because it's just feeling a little uncomfortable, a little not at ease, right?
Right.
Things aren't flowing exactly how we want. It's pretty short. So like, if mid or early morning, if you're starting to feel a little discombobulated, know that things are gonna kind of settle down a little bit. Because we're gonna get into 10 a.m. We got that moon sextile Venus in Pisces. I think that's really going to kind of be a balm, an emotional balm in some sort of way. And like being able to, I don't know, it's a little bit pleasurable. I mean, we love Venus in Pisces. She is retrograde. We don't love that, but we are really happy she's back in her exaltation. And then we have the moon sextile Mercury in Pisces a few hours after that. So those two things is kind of like mid-morning to afternoon before the moon enters Gemini. I almost feel like there's just like an understanding around what we need and how we want to communicate them. And like there's ability here to really do that for a moment.
Well, and I think that's really important because again, we're starting earlier in the day. It's a little bit more uncomfortable with that conjunction to Uranus and then the semi square. I think that yeah, saying that it's a bomb is a great way to put it, just because it shows that there is a way that we can kind of move through some of the discomfort that was introduced to us earlier in the day. We are resourced
Hmm.
to understand what we need, or it could just be that, especially with like Venus and Pisces, very well could be like maybe you feel emotionally resourced to handle it, or maybe there are people who or you
Hmm.
can seek out what makes you feel a little bit more comfortable and secure to kind of get you through whatever it is
Yeah.
that's making you feel not great first thing in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so 125, we get moon enters Gemini. We get
Mm-hmm.
clown moon.
Clown moon, silly clown, uh,
Definitely
which is
wants to
great. That definitely takes a little bit of that like heavy weightiness that Taurus moon can have, and it will, like we said, it's definitely gonna be an opportunity to kind of start synthesizing all of the weird information that you got at the start of the week.
lots of thinkies,
Lots of thinkies.
lots of data. I think one of the things we really have to remember with Gemini is not all of the things that we think are real or true. It is simply a thought or a piece of data or information. Gemini in general is not necessarily very focused on whether something is true or false. It just is curating all of whatever it can get. So there's something there, but we do get the sextile to Neptune in Aries like just immediately. Moon enters Gemini like just really minutes later it sextiles Neptune in Aries and it's like, ooh, a new vision.
A new vision, right? Because
And
we
she's
have
so
Neptune and Aries at like 0.01 degrees.
1 minute.
Yeah.
At only 1 minute. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that this feels really fresh and really
Yes.
new,
Mm-hmm.
and it could feel a little confusing because we still have the Neptunian fog that can happen, but I think it feels a little bit
It's
more playful. It
yeah,
feels energetic.
it's like a new idea and you don't really know how to enact it yet. But the nice thing about Gemini is like, yeah, but the possibility's there and that's all I need right now, you
Yeah, and
know?
Aries is like, let's go.
Yeah.
So
It's like send
it
it.
feels fresh. It feels
Yeah.
fresh and good. And then I think and also, I mean, again, creative,
Yeah.
right?
And if you're
Um,
the kind of person who is like likes to journal about astrology transits or anything like this, we just told you like, oh, aspects happening to Neptune at this point are kind of setting the stage. I would argue just because obviously Neptune's going to be doing this for a long time, and there's always going to be lots of, plenty of aspects to Neptune. You can kind of, you need to decide what feels most relevant for you. But I will say, this is the first aspect that um, wait, I just want to confirm that this is the first major aspect that we're seeing this week to Neptune.
Yeah, Ptolemaic
Yeah,
aspect.
the first Ptolemaic aspect that we're seeing to Neptune this week. So it might just be good to just like make a little mental note of what are you thinking about, right? Moon and Gemini, what are you thinking about? What's coming to mind around this time? And just make a little note of it because that could be telling us something that could be kind of setting your stage for your experience with Neptune and Aries.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then it goes into in the evening, we got, I think, some really lovely, I mean, for what it's worth, because it's Pluto, but we got some good aspects for this moon in Gemini to get, a little, definitely get deeper, to definitely think, to the like the deepest bottom, most bottom of the barrel, like to the
Mm-hmm.
recesses of everything instead of the surface. Like Gemini now has this ability to go and penetrate deeper into whatever he's trying to figure out because he has that trine to Pluto and
Like those
Aquarius.
hidden details or the details that may have been previously disregarded, Gemini is suddenly like, no, I think there might be something to this one, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's nice because Pluto's in Aquarius, so we're talking about two air signs. So we're not talking about getting really like emotionally intensely deep with this trine to Pluto, which is nice for Pluto because we all know how it can go with Pluto like in a water sign or something.
I think like if you had, the intense need to have a really like intense conversation with somebody, you would be able to do that without it getting into like the super tears place. Now, would it still feel critical? Would it still feel super important and like um have all that depth there for sure, but I think
Mhm.
that we're not necessarily going to go into the super emotional place.
It's going to be very cerebral. If you have a really intense conversation, it's going to be cerebral. And I think there's going to be a lot of, wow, you just brought some information to the table that I'm going to have to process for a
Yeah.
while, right? Like
Yeah.
you brought information to the table that I didn't even know we were considering.
Yeah. And I think just generally too, like this could be, the people kind of chewing on some secrets,
Mm-hmm.
like they're coming up, they're coming out, we're finding them out, they're, able to kind of really flow to the surface here. And we're kind of dealing with that. And then midnight, pretty much, Moon and Gemini, quintile, Saturn and Pisces, and like emotional intelligence. Like you have that conversation, you have that thought experiment with maybe with yourself or in conversation with somebody else, and then you're able to like maybe glean something here.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to arrive at a new level of emotional intelligence that you have not before. We like that for you.
We do like that.
We like that. We like that for us.
Mm-hmm.
Should we,
Yeah,
you want to
Moon
move
and
on?
Saturn together, it's always weighty, but it doesn't always have to feel bad. And that's kind of
Yeah,
what I like about the quintiles and the biquintiles is I do think it's this very like gentle, creative kind of way of bringing two things in contact with each other. So
I like the
yeah,
quintiles too. Let's move on to April 2nd, yeah?
yeah, Wednesday. So it's hump day and it's might arguably be one of the best days of this week.
I don't think it sucks. Yeah, I agree. I agree
Yeah.
with you. I think it's
It starts a little rough, but it's like still middle of the night. It's at 3 a.m. The semi square to Mars in Cancer.
Mhm.
And then it only goes up from there,
Yeah,
right? It only gets, it's almost better that it starts so bad, or not even so bad, but just kind of because you know,
def
set your expectations low and you won't be disappointed.
I agree. I definitely agree with you. We have um kind of wake up creative,
Mm-hmm.
5:41 a.m., Moon, Quintile, Venus. We love that. Like that's just, I don't
This
know,
is yummy.
it feels like light and effervescent, and then
Yeah, two mutable signs, so it's kind of like anything's possible.
yeah, anything's possible. All of this information can be created and transmuted into something really beautiful and really whole for all
Yeah,
of us.
yeah. Gemini is like really excited to bring Pisces all of this information, and Pisces is like, there is so much we can make with this. We have so many crafting materials now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And 7:15 a.m. We love the moon in Gemini sextile sun in Aries.
I also love Gemini and Aries together. Talk about like two clowns getting together to have their own little circus.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like a moment of play.
yeah, yep.
A
And we're
moment.
and we're waking up with that energy. So I feel like that it's about 7:15 a.m.
Mhm.
You might already be a little bit on your morning if you're further east, but yeah, it's just it's kind of like you're getting to start the day with this kind of playful energy.
Yeah.
And it's
The
a
big,
sextile, it's gentle, so it's not over the top. It's just nice.
yeah, the big aspect of the day though does happen I would say mid early morning. I don't know, 7:30 a.m. We get that retrograde Venus conjunct the North Node, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have some sort of, fated moment that has to do with Venusian things. It could be art, it could be women, it could be money.
Yeah. And keep in mind, we are talking about retrograde Venus and Pisces. So Venus has just moved back into Pisces with this retrograde. So again, I brought it up before, but look at what was going on with Venus and Pisces back at the end of January. Because I think that particularly with the fated nature of this conjunction to the North Node, there could be some like big information that Venus and Pisces is trying to tell you, and you may be able to glean more information about the specifics of that information if you look back at Venus and Pisces earlier in the year.
Like a renewal. It almost
Mm-hmm.
feels like a renewal of an old vow of some
Mm-hmm.
sort, or
I
like
love that.
a value that we had before that we didn't necessarily know that we could like really work with. Like maybe we put it down and we're like, actually, no, like that is something I truly value and I need to work with. And you just
Yeah.
kind of renew your sense of purpose. But
Almost like finding yourself, right? It's like rediscovering yourself.
yeah, yeah, I like that aspect. It can definitely has to do with all the information we've been taking in, the ruler being Jupiter and the moon will be with it. So it's like, kind of hitting that and like lighting it up for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just hoping that there is an instability though, right? When we have a planet hitting a node, it doesn't necessarily feel super firm.
Doesn't feel super firm, and it can definitely feel a little, like you said, it can just feel destabilizing.
Yeah.
I definitely think, particularly because it's retrograde Venus, so we're kind of revisiting things, and we could be revisiting things that we haven't um, put enough weight onto. There could
Yeah.
definitely be a sense of if you're not in alignment with Venus matters, or maybe wherever Pisces is in your chart, if you are not in alignment or moving in the direction that is best for your personal growth, this conjunction to the North Node is going to highlight that.
Yeah.
So, which is, it just depends on where you're at.
Yeah. Well, and we also consider Venus is now within 2 degrees of that conjunction with Saturn as well. So like the reality check again, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have
Yeah.
this old, new, old renewal of a vow, and then Saturn goes, okay, you wanna set that in stone there, buddy? What were
So
you?
the thing that was coming to mind with Venus and Pisces conjunct the North Node is almost like uh kind of revisiting something that felt very innate to you in childhood or like in at more pure places of your life. And at some point you lost that. And something about this conjunction is going to bring you back to that for better or worse, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh no, this is kind of how I was supposed to be, or this is the way I used to love. Those kinds of things. That's what was coming to mind. I think there was more, but we just had a pause. So,
Mhm. I also think about, just even thinking about like, Venus being in its exaltation. I'm thinking about it being in Saturn's bound and Saturn, and she's about to go meet up with Saturn. And it feels like a vow.
mhm,
It feels like a solemn vow
mhm.
of some sort, and she's at the very last degrees. She is going to go direct. I forget what degree she's going to go direct at, but she's not going to be in Pisces for very long. She's just dipping back here almost to make this this vow about something that she remembers,
Yeah,
right?
it's like the brevity of her going back almost makes it feel more profound, right? Where it's like, oh no, there was just this one thing that we had to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's a interesting experiment to have around her. So, but it's a pretty, it's at 7:30 a.m. It's the biggest aspect of the day. And then we do have that moon in Gemini is going to quintile Mercury. We like that moon in Gemini, it's, ruled by Mercury. So there's, being able to like, there's a communicative
Yep.
a way through Mercury and Pisces happens with that moon in Gemini, a way to really communicate through it in a way that people can understand. So it's not jello. It
No.
now has some sort of form
It's putting pen
here.
to paper. It really is. I really do
Yeah.
think it's like if you have something, I think like there's still a poetry in there,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But I think that Gemini definitely has the way to be like, okay, these are the words you need in order to write it down,
Right.
right?
Because Mercury is just like
Yeah.
a vibe, a color,
Yeah.
and confetti.
Just like an occasional like jazz riff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Mercury and Pisces. And then right after that, 9:17 a.m., there's a quintile to Neptune and Aries. So
I think it's creative.
yeah,
Again, it's
that's what I was gonna say is you just have these like double whammies of like really creative energy. And those are coming right off of that big Venus conjunction to the nodes.
Mhm.
So I do feel like there's some like I really like where you're going for with the saying that that Venus conjunction is a vow, and
Mhm.
these little transits afterward are kind of like I said, putting pen to paper. It's like a
Mhm.
creative vow. It's like a deep, loving, creative vow. And then we kind of have that energy to kind of keep working with it over the next couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 3:43 p.m. Moon conjunct Gemini, Jupiter and Gemini.
Yep.
Moon comes and kisses a benefic. Now, the benefic, again, isn't it the greatest condition, right? But it's still a benefic. So this is a feel-good aspect.
Mhm.
Lively, he's
Mhm.
chatty, he's got lots of ideas.
Chatty. I think the big thing is that it's chatty with lots of ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
too many. Maybe you're too excited and there's too many ideas going on in your brain.
There's definitely the caution to like not overdo it when we have moon Jupiter
Yeah.
aspects. There could be like really like consuming too much. Moon
Mhm.
in Gemini already needs a lot of data, and now it's coming to Jupiter that says more, and that can be an issue. And I think that speaks to the next aspect that the moon makes, which is that Setsky square Pluto and Aquarius at 8:15 p.m. Now we are in anxiety.
Mhm.
Like we went overboard and now
Done went and overdid it.
we touched the stove too much.
Yeah.
We thought too much, too deep, too fast, too hard, and now we're here in anxiety land and we don't know what to do about it, but it's 8:15. Like drink some tea and go to bed.
Go to bed. Just go to
Just
bed.
go to bed. If you can go to
Yeah.
bed and like forgive yourself for all of the ways that you might have overprocessed something. If that Sesame Square Pluto and Aquarius feels like I chewed too hard and then I cracked my teeth when I was chewing on this thought too much. Like I
Yeah.
cracked them.
Hmm. Yeah, you
So,
got overexcited. It's kind of like a toddler at the end of the day, right? Toddler who's just like excited to be alive and everything is new and exciting. And then they skip their nap and now they're cranky. Um,
yeah, this is definitely a day where people skip their nap.
this is a day where people skip their nap. Yeah. And it's because there's like a lot of creative inspiration that comes earlier in the day. There could be this, like you said, this vow, this creative energy. There's this playful energy. It almost
Mhm.
feels a little bit escapist sometimes.
I mean, Neptune's involved now, so.
Neptune's involved, Venus is in Pisces. There's some escapism happening.
And we're not even aware what that escapism is because Neptune is now in Aries. We're not familiar with this yet. So
Yeah.
it's like I didn't even know I was, checking out in this different way than I have been before, which was just like sinking into the Piscean abyss.
Yeah.
you
And I
know?
think that's so, and Sid and I were talking about sesqui squares before we started recording.
Hmm.
It's a shitty minor placement. I have a couple of them in my chart. And it definitely presents as this anxious energy that you just don't have a solution for. It's like you don't even know where it comes from. You don't know why it's here. You don't know how to get rid of it. You feel like you don't have the information you need to make sense of it. And so that's what sesqui squares can feel like. Uh, and so I think it's just really important when you're experiencing this sesqui square to just get through it. And you can always look back and reflect on where that anxiety was coming from. I find
I mean,
it's best with sesqui squares just to take the information and just try to like and just rationalize it as best as you can.
and he is hitting the most anxiety producing planet that it could be hitting, which is Pluto. Like, it's just like, oh, I have this anxious aspect with anxiety itself. I have a date with anxiety to
I
hang
have
out
it.
with anxiety, to dine on anxiety,
That
to
sounds.
smell it, to snort it like a fucking drug. Like, I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. Like, I'm just gonna wallow in my own anxiety, pig and shit of
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
try
Uh,
to.
and maybe it's even like that vow that you made earlier in the day. You're suddenly being like,
It's
like
a big vow. It's a
I
big
made a huge
type of.
commitment, you know? Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a little bit of a tough way to end Wednesday. I still argue that I think Wednesday is one of the best days. I'm a person who loves excess. I have a couple different squares to my Jupiter. So whenever I see something that's like, it's going to be a juicy creative day, I'm like, well, fuck all the other bad aspects. I'm here for it.
Oh, God.
But that's
Yeah.
just,
Bless you on that. I don't have any squares from Jupiter. Jupiter is just being pretty kind to me. So
no, I love things in excess. I love overdoing things and then feeling anxious about it afterward. That's pretty on brand for me.
cool.
So,
So let's
oh.
move on to the third. We're gonna go to April 3rd. Here we go.
Okay, so the third, Thursday, April 3rd, we are starting out at 2:32 a.m. Moon in Gemini, sextiling Chiron in Aries at 22 degrees.
Maybe it's a balm. Maybe it's a balm for the anxiety. Maybe
Yep.
there's healing, some wisdom comes in the dream.
Yeah, processing stuff in your dreams.
Yeah, and let's run like Tomb Raider through this because we're getting a little bit tight on time so we can get to the G Friday.
Cool. And also, this is just like the whole first half of Thursday is just a crap load of small, like minor aspects.
We have that Moon in Gemini square Saturn and Pisces
Yeah.
right when we wake up. So this can feel like some sort of emotional reality check, some sort of limit, some sort of block, some sort of it can feel a little bit like a Debbie. I love using Debbie Downer for Saturn Moon because it really is. It's just like womp womp. Like Moon in Gemini is like I want, I can fly twice as high. It's in the book. And Saturn's like, no, it's not, like not in a book, you sucker, and like slams you down on like you go up for a layup and then like Shaq's just there and just goes, no.
And just fucks it up for you. And again, we're talking about these two mutable energies. So the nice,
Yeah.
like when you have like nice compatible or flowing contacts between two mutables, it can definitely feel like the possibilities are endless. And I think with squares for mutables, it can kind of feel like again, just like too much information, no idea what to do with it.
We got to be really flexible too. Like there's a call here to like the only thing you can do with a mutable square is literally be flexible
Mhm.
and like create a new way through.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all you can do.
Yeah. Let the chips fall where they may and just be prepared to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
we do have skipping through to noon, Moon Square, that retrograde Venus in Pisces. Now, do you think that this is the moon goes? hey, what about that promise we made?
And Venus is like, no.
Like, and so it just doesn't feel, feels what is it called? Just kind of out of sorts.
Yeah.
Out of
Like
sorts.
second guessing.
Yeah, and considering that Venus can often kind of talk about like our levels of comfort,
Hmm.
this just feels she's just uncomfortable. Maybe she's uncomfortable with the promise she made. She knows that she has to keep it.
Hmm.
She knows that she has to go forward.
Now
And
Moon in Gemini is starting to think of every single possibility that comes with that vow, right? This is going to be the time where we are thinking about all of the possibilities and scaring ourselves.
yeah,
Uh,
especially because right after is the moon squares that Mercury, that retrograde Mercury in Pisces as well. So like those two things together just say, okay, now I'm uncomfy about the ways that I've decided to move forward, and I'm definitely rethinking things.
yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you've made the wrong choice,
No.
but it could mean that there are details that you need to consider that may change that vow. It's kind of like with every time a really, really good thing happens to you, it's like getting married, right? You get married, the wedding day is fucking lit. Everybody's happy, your whole family's there. And then after the wedding, you actually have to be married, like you actually have to take that person for better or worse. And you can take that with any other, that's just a metaphor, but now you've made the vow, now you have to actually live with the vow and
Yeah.
all of the negative stuff that comes with that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that Gemini is now, the moon in Gemini is now starting to think of all those possibilities like, oh, I didn't consider that that person's feet stink, right? Or I didn't consider that that person snores when they sleep. Like, are we going to have to share a bed the rest of our lives? So just think about it in those terms as like, oh, like I made this vow. Now all the negative stuff comes with it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And again, the square is just the mutable square again is having to make some sort, just go with the flow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
flow.
Which is the best thing you can do when you've made a vow, right? Is like you just kind of have to live with what comes with it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the like such an important piece of like data that ever came to me about having mutable angles, because I'm a Virgo rising and mutable angles, was from an astrologer named John Marchesella, and he was just like, well, you have mutable angles, like you literally just have to go with the flow. Like you just have to adjust. There's lots of change, and you just have to get really used to that. And
Mhm.
so whenever I see mutable squares in a chart, I'm like, you just got to get used to things will change and you can't try to hold on to it. Now, my Taurus stellium fucking hates that. But um but I do know that it's kind of a feature, not a bug inside of the mutable kind of energy is like there's always change. There's always
Mhm.
it's trying to flow through.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how your chart is set up. That's just the nature of life, right? Is that there are changes. And that is, I think that's one of, it's not even that whether it's a feature, it's a bug. I think that's the gift of mutable energy is that is our route to being able to cope with change. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So anyway, I don't think mutable squares are the worst. I like them better than fixed squares. So, but yeah, so that's going to be the middle of the day into 2:30 on Thursday. And then at
Hmm.
3:50 moon enters Cancer.
Yeah. So, we get back to, well, one moon, where the moon is usually peregrine in Gemini, like it's considered not great in general, which I think is a lie. It just likes to wander. The moon in Cancer is now back in her home. She has her blankets. She is in her house. She has a nice little fire going. She's got a mug of hot chocolate. Her kids are around her. She feels good.
Yep.
She feels safe.
And then 3 minutes after it goes into Cancer, it squares Neptune and Aries. So blew up your little house with your children.
Yeah, I think it's more like just feeling like, oh, cozy. Oh no, emotionally confused.
Yeah. Especially because it's Neptune and Aries, right? So we have a cardinal square happening here. Again, we're still at these beginning critical degrees with Neptune. So yeah, I think Cancer is just like this. It's almost like they walk into their house and they're like, this doesn't feel like my house anymore.
Yeah, and like needing to like do something about it, but it can't. There's just an awareness that it needs to change something about how it's doing its comfort.
Hmm.
And like Neptune's like, okay, well, we gotta like maybe kind of wash that away, that thing that you're doing that's not so great. Because whenever we have a a planet, a personal planet, especially touching Neptune,
Hmm.
Neptune is trying to dissolve something. It's trying to kind of like slide away. I always think of like melting whenever there's like it's not abrupt like Pluto, and it's not shocking like Uranus. It's like a weird pantyhose film that comes over and it goes, I'm just gonna slide
Yeah.
this down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like how fog just like slowly
Fog.
enters into, into whatever space you're in. It's not like all of a sudden you just walk into a wall of fog. You can see it coming and then just kind of settling over you. And
So
yeah,
there's
and I think it's interesting in Aries, right? Because it really, I think more than anything, Neptune and Aries is the thing where it's like you have to throw things against a wall and see what sticks because you can't see ahead of you.
Mhm.
Aries is that very like raw initiative energy, and Neptune is very disorienting. So there's definitely this energy with Neptune and Aries of like just having to try stuff. It's very
Yeah,
like the fool energy of like I just have to walk off this cliff and find out if I'm actually walking off a cliff.
yeah,
Right. And so yeah, with Moon and Cancer, it's definitely stuff around like comfort and home. Uh Having to make sense of that and just try something new.
yeah. And then just from that feeling confused and possibly a bit overwhelmed as well, because Neptune does do that overwhelming thing, fun. We get Moon in Cancer quincunx, Pluto in Aquarius. This is again an anxiety aspect. This is, you know, when I think about it, I'm like, it knows there needs to be some sort of adjustment in
Mhm.
how it does this cancer thing, this security minded thing, because it is not actually working with the greater good.
Yeah.
And there's an anxiety in having to give that up, to break that, or, in some sort of way. And so this just, the evening, the afternoon, the late afternoon to the evening doesn't feel great.
No. And I think with quincunxes, it's almost like that thing where you have to make a compromise, but ultimately with the compromise, neither side is totally happy.
No, no.
Right. Like it's just a compromise just to get through it, and nobody's really happy with the conclusion that we had to come to. And I think that when we're thinking in the macro, we haven't talked much about the macro stuff this episode, but I think with Cancer and Aquarius interacting, it always brings me back to what's going on with the bigger picture of things right
Mhm.
now. Just because Aquarius being community and society, and Cancer again being like homeland and what makes us feel
My
safe. Yeah, they're
my my home, my mother, my father,
my land.
in
Uh,
my land.
there is absolutely a discomfort between what is mine and what belongs to the collective with this quincunx. So
It's almost like being asked to share. And the moon in
don't
Cancer is
wanna.
like, I do not feel safe doing that, but being literally forced,
Mhm.
forced to give something up in order to serve everybody.
Yep.
Um,
And again, with the quincunx, Cancer ends up handing something over to Pluto and Aquarius, and Aquarius is like, well, thanks, but this isn't really what I wanted.
yeah, yeah.
Worse.
And quincunxes can be a break as well. Like it's not just anxiety and adjustment, but it can also just be like an abrupt break because they just don't see eye to eye as well.
Can't
Yeah,
work.
well, so it's just not great. Okay, let's let's bomb forward. Let's go to Friday.
Yeah, Thursdays are
Uh,
gonna be a little uncomfortable. Sorry, guys.
yeah, yeah, she's not the cutest that she could be. So let's go
No.
to Friday. This, I think, is th this day is pretty meaty. It's almost as if everything has kind of been working its way up to this awareness point. We do have the first quarter square of the moon to the sun, so we know that we're like halfway between getting to full moon, right? Um, we have the Saturn and Pisces sextile Uranus and Taurus. We have the Mars and Cancer sextile Uranus and Taurus as well later on the day. And we have Mars and Cancer perfects its trine to Saturn and Pisces finally. And these are like the
I think
big,
that's the big story of Friday,
the
right? Is
key
that
days. Yeah.
that perfection between Mars and Saturn, because that thing's been a bitch. Just has
Yeah.
been.
Like running in the background. Well, not even the background, really the foreground. The two malefics, not in great condition, literally just stripping, cutting, in batting away all of these things around our country, our culture, our society, our homeland, our rights, our everything. Like it's just been really amazing to watch in real time how quickly everything is just changed in
And like
all of the
right.
in so many ways that I would say the majority of Americans, let's keep it to our particular homeland, are pretty fucking terrified about.
Terrified and exhausted,
Yeah.
and not resourced for. Right.
Yeah. But I think that the first quarter square of the moon and the sun really like we have an awareness of how we can take action, perhaps. I think that there's like with the cardinal square, that is the push, right? It's like we're aware and we have to do this thing now.
And with moon again, with moon and Cancer, we're talking about like I don't feel safe, right?
Mhm.
My stuff is being threatened. And
Yeah.
then Sun and Aries, obviously, it's like, then let's go to war. Like let's fucking do something. Let's fight. So it's there, but it's definitely it's this drive to fight or to combat that's based on this like very genuine fear for the safety of oneself.
Yeah. Yeah.
We see that.
And we have Uranus in play today, right? With Saturn and Mars, with both of the malefics coming and touching Uranus, right? So there's like maybe a new way,
Mhm.
a new a new hit on how Mars Saturn can go forward because of these sextiles, right? It's like it picks up just a new way of being for a moment,
Yep. Mhm.
an inspiration. Oh, I'm gonna do this now, and I'm gonna do this. Um, it's it can be some sort of change in Saturnian things, like government is a Saturnian thing.
Mhm.
And it can be sudden because Uranus, it can have to do with money because we got Taurus going on. There could be something around the markets happening then. And then that Mars sextile Uranus, some sort of action, some new action being taken.
Mhm.
And
And
how
again, it also seems motivated by needing to feel secure, needing to feel safe, because we've got Cancer and Taurus together. So there's definitely like my
yeah.
stuff and my resources, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think Friday's kind of a whammy.
Friday's a whammy. And I think like just because we're looking at this perfection to that the perfecting and the trine between Mars and Saturn, I think it's just a great chance if you're a person who's still learning about astrology or you're still a skeptic of astrology. I just feel like this moment in time with this Mars Saturn trine is a perfect example because we've been talking about when two malefics come together harmoniously, kind of the destruction that they can cause and how that trine can actually make that destruction very easy for them, right? We
Yeah.
voted these dumb fucks into office, and it's been 2 months, right? 2 months. I think it'll be 3 months by the time we're here. It's been 3 months, and we are just like watching just like the very systemic uh dismantling of all of these systems that we previously knew, and this dismantling of everything that we took for granted as being part
That.
of the US.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just and we all just kind of sat here and watched it happen, right? We're all just kind of sitting here like, holy shit, this is really happening, right? And I think that's a really good example of what these two malefics coming together in a trine can be like, is everyone just kind of steps back and like watches the destruction happen, and it happens. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm very curious to see, because um it's going to perfect on this day, but we've been watching it come closer into this perfection leading up to the fourth. So, what is it all going to culminate to around this time?
Yeah.
We'll see.
And considering that it's only we're now just a week from the eclipse having happened,
Mhm.
right? So now it's with the first quarter square, maybe it's an awareness of what began, what really actually began. There is an awareness now, and it is faded, it is big.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
what led us to this, right?
yeah, I'm, we're talking now a week behind this.
Mhm.
We're it's March 24th and we're having this conversation about Friday the 4th. So we are very far behind this. And I'm like, ooh, like now that we're talking about it, I'm like, interesting day.
That's
Um, yeah,
indeed.
yeah.
Um,
So
and again,
let's heat up.
just keep in mind, as far as the micro level goes, as we're talking about like how, again, two malefics come together in a trine. Now think about what has Mars and Cancer been doing in your chart, and what has Saturn and Pisces been doing in your chart. Um, what has been, and it's not always like bad destruction necessarily, right? But it is destruction and dismantling.
Yeah.
It is being destroyed and dismantled in your personal life, in your chart. What have Mars and Saturn been doing in your chart? So yeah.
Yeah. Not fun. Not fun. Okay. So that brings us into Saturday, Saturn's day. And Saturn's been, obviously talking, just had that moment happen. So
You've been busy.
we've been busy. Now we're back to, I want to say, what feels like a very moony day.
Yep.
We just have really moon aspects to pretty much everything. Moon in Cancer is going to conjunct that out of bounds Mars in Cancer in the morning, which can definitely be anger. Um,
Definitely heightened emotion. Like without question, it's heightened emotions, right?
hyphy,
Yeah. And
hyphy.
oh my God.
And really highlighting our desire nature, right? Because the moon is coming and having it's like having an emotional awareness of our desire nature to be in in a in a place of protection, in a place of security, of like, how we feel about our family, how we feel about our parents, like, the forefathers of our country.
Wah, wah.
Want, want. And then we have some, I mean, that's a working aspect, certainly. And then we have working aspects for the rest of the day, really. I think Saturday, if you have a to-do list,
Today's the day to do it.
bro, get it done.
Yeah.
Get it done. You can get a lot done today. I really do think you can get a lot done today, and you are in some sort of, it's like almost like um an awareness of how you're feeling, how you're thinking, your motivations, like
Yep.
all of these things are kind of working in like, oh, in a unison so that you can just really get her done, literally get her done.
Yeah.
It's
And there's been a lot going on earlier in the week, so it might be that you don't even feel like you have access to getting this stuff done until Saturday, when those things kind of come together.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And moon in Cancer is, moon in Cancer can be the one that cries and cries easily and cries because it's crabby and cries because it's hungry. It cries because it's happy. It cries. It just cries because
It
it's,
cries because
water.
it's part of the collective human experience and feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but it's not, so,
I do think I think as far as like a to-do list, this is a great like home to-do list. Like if you need to clean your house,
mop your floors, all of that water.
yeah. Oh yeah, mop your floors, clean the toilet,
Take a spiritual bath, like do all of that stuff.
clean the grout in your shower, whatever, you know.
9:34 a.m. the moon enters Leo,
Hmm.
which, playful, creative, dramatic.
Yep. We've
I
talked about Moon and Leo before because we all know how Sydney feels about Moon and Leo.
so dramatic. And I think that with that immediate aspect to Neptune,
Hmm.
it is extra dramatic.
Hmm.
I think it's
The
just like,
trine to Neptune and Aries. Oh my God. You're right.
no, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I think it's just like all of that fire just like hit this like air balloon that just goes
Yeah.
just
Yep.
more.
Hmm. And
Neptune.
I think that Leo, especially Moon and Leo, I think it can really highlight that side of Neptune that is less talked about, which it can be that kind of like larger than life idealism. Like even fame can be associated with Neptune. So I definitely think when Leo in particular contacts Neptune, especially when it's in Aries, uh, yeah, there's definitely this larger than life, like I demand to be seen, and what I'm feeling is larger than life right now. Um, or I certainly want you to believe that. I want you to I want to like catch you in this fantasy that I am performing for you of
Yeah.
how big my feelings are. Right.
Like, bruh, think about so I'm looking at this chart, right? And I'm looking at like Moon Mars, they're in contact. And then we have that sun in Aries exalted, right? And then like either one, we have the Moon Mars contact, which is whatever that, that's already like pretty intense, can be kind of crappy. Or we get this Moon in Leo, trine Neptune in Aries. The baby's born on this day.
The baby is born. It really is. Yeah, talk about like the biggest larger than life moment of like the baby's head crowning and then
Like it's
screaming.
super.
It's not just like I'm here, but it's like I'm here.
Yeah, like there's like an exuberance and not necessarily in a good way, but we do have Venus in Pisces, retrograde. There's just so much that cardinality, and then also just like the moon going into Leo, which, yeah, I mean, there would be
Like a natal moon in Leo. This could be a really big day for you to journal about Neptune and Aries, right? And how that story is going to play out for you specifically, because I do think there is like a grand entrance happening here.
very creative, but like not
Yeah,
necessarily.
and that's the thing is like very creative, very performative,
Yeah,
right? Which could be a ton of fun.
yeah,
It could
yeah.
be,
Fired up. She blown up like a balloon.
yep. And then it kind of and then we have a minor aspect at 11:10 p.m. We
It's
have,
like the inflated sense of ego.
what'd you say?
The inflated sense of ego.
For the trine Neptune or
Yeah, for the moon in Leo, trine Neptune, like
yeah.
I, and then that hits that semi-square to Jupiter and Gemini, and now it's like, oh God, I I
I
did a
can't
little bit
consider all
too
these
much.
details though.
But like also like, did I do a little bit too much?
Mhm.
I think I did a
And
little
that seems
bit
to
too.
be a theme that we're seeing throughout this week, right? Is that there's like a little bit of excess with what we're doing here.
Mars is still out of bounds.
Mars is still out of bounds. We've just got Neptune into Aries. So we really are in this new beginning stage of like, I'm just gonna like jump
I'm just gonna
and
do
see
it.
where I land kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of energy of like, and you know what? That's also interesting because that this Monday that we talked about, where it's like this false start, where we keep being like, maybe I'll do this, I don't know. Maybe I'll do this, I don't
Yeah,
know. Like that's how the whole week starts, and then we finally do just kind of leap. But there's definitely this energy of us like leaping into things and then being like, I might have overdone that, or maybe that wasn't the right direction to jump into.
right.
Um, and like that Venus and Pisces, where we're like, I am committing to this. And then the very next day, we're like, oh God, I just committed to this. Right. So that seems to be like the overall energy of this week is just kind of like jumping into things and then second guessing ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we're jumping in with both feet and then being like, maybe I should have dipped a toe. you know. So you see a lot of that, and that's kind of how Saturday ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay. Let's do Sunday. Let's wrap this fucker up. Um, we got, I think this is the right one. Hopefully. Okay, so here we go. Sunday, April 6th.
mhm.
Now we got, Moon and Leo, like we said, early in the morning, we got the Sun in Aries, sextile Jupiter and Gemini. This is a feel-good aspect, this is playful dreams where you're like running in fields, like off into, you're flying through the air, you're
Yeah,
Superman, like, that kind of thing.
where it's funny, a funny dream, something like that.
Yeah. 4:08 a.m. though. Moon and Leo opposite Pluto and Aquarius.
Yeah.
Moon Pluto oppositions just really bring in a sense of like really awareness. Like, right, this is just an awareness. This is an external awareness, right? This could be something has come to your attention that causes some sort of emotional upheaval and a not even a but like I don't know. It's like I hate using the word intense for Pluto, but that is what it is. Extremes, emotional extremes. This takes us, whatever comes up, brings us to emotional extremes. And when we have that moon in Leo doing what the moon in Leo does, this
Already
is,
being extreme just for the sake of being extreme. Just
yeah,
for
this
the
is this,
performance of it.
this is drama. This is emotional drama.
Drama.
Yeah, this is a drama llama aspect.
And again, we've talked so much about the Leo Aquarius opposition just because we've been talking so much about what's going on societally. But there's definitely this tension between like I demand to be seen and this thing where it's also like you're not that special. you know.
Well, and if we consider just it like the Leo archetype, what they need to do when they're operating in their best way is to be generous and open-hearted and to realize that they are unique in the same way that everybody else is unique
Exactly.
and that they can still feel their sense of specialness and also be a part of a collective
Mhm.
operating in cooperation without taking up too much space and being able to allow other people to also have the spotlight at different times.
Right.
Now, do Moon and Leos do that often? Depends on the rest of the chart, but
And yeah, that definitely depends on what other are you making nice flowing aspects to other nice planets, where what house is that moon and Leo in? All of those are things that you have to consider if you're a natal moon and Leo being like, fuck these bitches.
yeah.
Great, which is absolutely the way a moon and Leo would react to this.
Well, and a Moon and Leo with that opposition to Pluto is willing to go to extremes,
Right.
right? Because Pluto is about extremes as well, is willing to go to extremes in order to be noticed and recognized and to be seen as important. And so, oppositions to Pluto can just be really extremely dramatic, extremely
And
trip.
I do prefer oppositions over like a square.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure, because it's like there's a full awareness.
There's a full awareness and there is common ground, right? When you have two sister signs kind of looking each other in the face. I think with Pluto, it can definitely feel a little bit more jarring to say, like, oh, this is,
I mean,
I'm
it's
having
also
to confront
fixed.
a part of myself that like I'm not comfortable with. But if you're a well-evolved person or a self-aware person, then you can definitely take these oppositions and say, oh, I do want this to be all about me, but I'm seeing that there's other people in the room and I might need to uh, integrate that a little
Yeah.
more.
It is a fixed opposition though, so it can feel a little bit more jarring than
Definitely learning.
than other things going on there. 5:13 a.m. This is pretty much like I would say one of the more major aspects of the day. We have the Mars in Cancer trying Venus in Pisces, the retrograde Venus in Pisces. So, this is a nice flowing aspect between
I like this.
yeah,
Uh,
desires and drives and our values and we can feel some sort of sense of unity and cooperation between the masculine and feminine principles. Definitely more on like the feminine kind of way of things because we got Cancer and Pisces then.
Turn Pisces, yeah.
We do have to remember that Mars in Cancer is still in its detriment. He's not great, but he is in a nice aspect with Venus. So
Yeah.
he's playing well. They're flowing, they're intuitive. They're
It's a retrograde Venus, but yeah.
what was that?
I said it's retrograde Venus, so there's things happening on both sides. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's not the cleanest Cancer Pisces trine that you can get, but I still like this overall for the day.
She feels passionate.
I was gonna say it feels emotional, but like in a way that we can hold, right? The two
It's
energy
like
want to hold. What'd you say?
crying when you come.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. And if you're a Mars and a water sign, maybe you like that.
Maybe you like that.
My Mars is in Gemini, so when you said that, I was like, ooh. But
My Mars is in Taurus, but he is in Mars's bound, so he feels a lot. He feels awkward about it.
it just feels awkward about how much you feel.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, yeah, Mars and Taurus.
I call this the crying when you come aspect.
You're welcome, everybody. Um, then we get into
And
it's
this is all, keep in mind, it's not even, this is at 5 in the morning.
yeah, it's a weird day. It's a weird day. Like we
This is
wake
the
up
energy
like
that
that.
we're likely going to be waking up with in
Yeah,
this trine, which
yeah.
is nice, not bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad because you can like work with that, but then we literally hit a bowling alley of sesqui squares with this moon in Leo. This moon in Leo that either like the other thing to note about Leo is that like sometimes Leo also doesn't want to shine. Sometimes Leo is shy.
Mhm.
Right? And I think when we hit the sesqui squares, this bowling alley, it's 438, sesqui square to Saturn and Pisces. I think that, that's an anxiety around like maybe like Leo's authority, like feeling like it can stand up on its own 2 feet.
Mhm.
Then we get the sesqui square to Venus in Pisces, and like Venus in Pisces, retrograde Venus in Pisces, and then the retrograde Mercury in Pisces just a few hours later they're like Mercury and Venus are taking everything into account.
Yeah.
And Moon and Leo is not,
No.
and it's like, why won't you listen to me? And like Venus is like, because I am talking about everybody and everything
Hmm.
all at once,
Hmm.
you know. But it can be, Leo and Pisces can be about creativity. So this can be some sort of issues coming up around our creative identity and purpose.
I think it's like, yeah, and I love what you're saying with this, especially because Leo in so many ways represents childhood
Yeah.
and kind of our development of ego at that time. And I think bringing up that Leo can be shy is important because when we think about the like childhood development, and the development of the ego. Children children can develop their egos when they are in a safe place, right?
Mhm.
And where when their ego expression is kind of being held and being nurtured. And if we are in spaces where that's not being nurtured, then a child's ego will be wounded, right? So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's just like a good way to think about, why does Leo get shy sometimes? What are the conditions that will suddenly make a Leo not feel like it can stand on its own 2 feet? Because Leo is still fundamentally representative of this sort of childhood place where we do need that support, and we need to be seen, and we need to be validated in order to express ourselves in the healthiest way. So when you have all
Yeah.
these little sesqui squares happening, maybe Leo is kind of like, I'm feeling nitpicked, or I'm feeling,
Yeah.
you know,
And I love that word well, I don't love the word invalidated, but I love that word with the how you used it is like the moon is feeling invalidated by either, you know, everybody's saying you have to take all of these things into account, but the moon and Leo is like, no, but like my what I care about is important to me. And like,
drew this picture and you're just criticizing the picture, and you're not just appreciating that I drew you the picture. Yeah.
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 So, it's frustrating that the moon in Leo is feeling frustrated about the ways that it can communicate either what it needs, what it's thinking, what's important to it. And so, Sunday afternoon doesn't feel great.
No.
Um, so I think it's definitely be gentle with yourself. This like reparent yourself. Be the parent that you wish that you had in that
Mhm.
moment.
Mhm.
And like be really gentle with yourself because we kind of went through it all week.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And it's interesting that it's ending this way, because we just talked about how the whole week kind of has this energy of just kind of like jumping in and second guessing ourselves. And I think
Yeah.
this is kind of like a melancholy place for the moon to be ending the week, right? Where it's kind of like, man, I feel like I'm trying and I'm still not feeling great about myself, and I'm not sure what direction I'm going in right now. Um,
Yeah, and that's okay because we're literally in the land of new beginnings.
Exactly. Yeah. If anything, I think we should take comfort in the fact that all of us are going through this astrology right now, and all of us in our own little ways are kind of going through some new beginnings
Yeah.
right now, and none of us know what that's going to how that's going to pan out.
Yeah.
And we're all just kind of by the end of this week, we're going to be coming off the heels of eclipse season and just reorienting ourselves.
Yeah, and things will start to calm down. But just maybe not, definitely not this week. In the following week, we're gonna start to do a little bit of culling with the moon going into Virgo and all of that. But we'll talk about that next week. We are at time. And so everybody remember we're open for clients. We're gonna put the card at the end. And yeah, you can find us online. All of that is there as well. And thanks for hanging out with us today. We will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.